Hello, it's Vanessa Aitken. Welcome to this morning's video. In the next 7 days, what I'm going to be doing with you is I'm going to show you how you can bypass your overactive mind, your worried mind, your anxious mind, your overwhelmed mind, and access a great well of inner peace, calm, and happiness. Regardless of where you are in life right now, regardless of where you've been, or regardless of what happened to you decades ago, I'm going to show you how you can be calm and composed and quiet on the inside, and how you can be the happy, relaxed person that you're actually meant to be. And the great thing is there's not a whole bunch of tools and techniques. There's nothing really to be disciplined with or to practice or to learn. There's just a different way of seeing and being and listening. So take a deep breath, knowing that you are going to be able to just listen, observe and understand, and that alone will change the way you feel. I am going to ask that you do one thing throughout the next 7 days, and that is I'm going to ask you to listen with a different set of ears. I'm going to ask you to listen with your inner ears, or what some people call that wise part of themselves, their intuitive aspect of their being, or what I like to call wisdom, rather than listening to what I'm saying with your intellect. Now, you know when you're listening with your wisdom because you hear beyond what I'm saying, you hear beyond the words, and you feel what I'm trying to convey. And you hear and you see things differently. You know when you're listening with your intellect because you start to ask questions like, what does she mean by that? How does that apply to me? Do I do this? Do I do that? Oh, I know someone who should be doing that. That's when you're listening with your intellect. And when you're listening with your intellect, it prevents you from seeing yourself, your mind, or your situation in a different way. And it gets in the way of you being a calm, balanced and relaxed person. So just put your intellect or your ego on the floor for the next 7 days, or whenever you're listening to these videos, and let it have a bit of a snooze, because it has been working really hard to keep you in this state of busyness, noisy, monkey mind. In the next 7 days, I'm going to share with you how there are 3 psychological principles that affect our sense of calmness, affect our sense of joy, affect our sense of well-being. And I'm going to touch on those 3 psychological principles very briefly now. Now, what is a principle? Well, a principle is something that is unmovable and unchangeable and always at work, much like gravity. So gravity is a principle that is always at work, whether you are aware of it or not, whether you are aware of it or not, or whether you believe in it or not. And just like there are principles of the natural world, there are also principles of the psycho-spiritual world, so the psychological spiritual world. And when I say spiritual in this context, I mean intangible. So there are principles that are always at work in the psycho-spiritual world, whether we are aware of them or not, and also whether we believe in them or not. And these 3 principles are mind, consciousness, and thought. And these 3 principles are what create all of your emotions, create all of your feelings, and all of your mental states. Now, the beautiful thing about these 3 principles is that, not very well known in Australia yet, but in the US and the UK, they are changing the way psychiatrists and psychologists work with their clients. It's incredibly exciting. It's been taken into psychiatric hospitals. It's been taken into drug and alcohol rehabilitation centres, also into homeless shelters, into detention centres, so adult and juvenile prisons. This understanding is incredibly profound and has very deep and lasting impacts. So I'm really excited to be able to share it with you today. So what are these principles? Well, let's very quickly have a look at these principles right now. So the first principle that we're going to have a look at is the principle of mind. Now, mind is not the same as brain. Brain in this context, well, brain, not in this context, in any context, brain is physical, mind is, in this context, is spiritual or intangible. And the mind that I refer to is also known as universal energy. It's also known as chi, collective consciousness. In physics, it's known as sometimes known as the quantum field. It's known as big mind, divine mind. It's also known as God. It can take many different names. Mind is the life force that exists around us, and it is the life force that exists beyond us. It is where everything comes from. It is what keeps the earth on its axis and rotating around the sun. It is the energy that helps create the moon and tidal forces. It is the energy that is within a seed. The seed knows how to turn itself into a tree. It is the energy that knows how to create a baby. It is an energy that is undeniably around us. So that is the mind that I am referring to throughout the next 7 days. Then there is thought. Now, thought is our capacity to create our experience by how we think. And we can use thought to create a whole range of experiences, everything from joy and elation to despair and depression. Now, thought in this context gives us the power to think. It makes us the thinker. So there is thought, and then there is thinking. Right now, I am talking about thought, which gives us the power to think. So thought and thinking are different things, and I will elaborate on that in videos to come. And then finally, there is consciousness. Now, consciousness is also known as awareness. Consciousness is our ability to realize the existence of our life. Now, consciousness is also our ability to be aware of the power of mind and the power of thought, and how we use these two to create our experience of reality. Now, thought brings whatever you are thinking to life, and it makes whatever you are thinking seem very, very real. Now, I get that this might all sound a little bit woo-woo, but think of it in another context. It is never the external circumstances which affect us. It is never those circumstances that determine our experience. It's not our boss, it's not our partner, it's not our children, the job we're in, the house we live in, the suburb we live in, or any of those kind of factors. Our experience is created by how we relate to those circumstances, and we create those experiences by using mind, consciousness, and thought. Now, because this is such a huge topic, I don't have time, unfortunately, to cover all of those 3 principles in the next week. That is something I dive very deeply into with my clients. However, be good if I could speak properly. We will be looking at one of those principles in some detail this week, and how it has the capacity to calm your mind, calm your sense of well-being, allow you to detach from an overactive mind, a worried mind, an anxious mind. And that is through looking at and understanding the nature of thought, and how thought is incredibly important in understanding our experiences. We're also going to have a look at some other factors as well, and I'm going to also show you some lovely things that you can do to bring yourself back into the present moment and understand what's happening, so that you don't have that overactive, busy, anxious mind. So that's a little bit of an introduction to the next 7 days. I'd love to know what you think about that. Please comment below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, take care.